Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at the crypto market as a whole here and discuss where I think we are in the cycle. In the recent days, we've seen Bitcoin fall down into extreme fear, reaching levels that it hasn't seen since the tariff scare in March and April earlier this year, and that is on the back of seeing Bitcoin dropped down as low as 89,000 in the last 24 hours. Now, there hasn't really been a whole lot to discuss here in crypto. We've kind of just been ranging since the liquidation scare about a month ago, and a lot of the coins that we do monitor here on the channel, like XRP, have just been going sideways for the last month. But I do think now that we have started to see Bitcoin dip into these extreme fear levels, and we are seeing structural resemblance to the way that Bitcoin has performed in 2021, there is an opportunity to see some positive price action come soon from Bitcoin. Though I do think it will be pretty short-lived, and that's what we're going to get into in today's video as we really deep dive into how the crypto market is looking from a higher time frame perspective here, and how I think we are seeing a lot of signs that we did see back in 2021 when the market cycle was coming to an end. So it's been a while since my last vid, but there's a lot to discuss today, so let's jump into it. So there's a lot that I want to discuss in this video. I want to have a look at Bitcoin. I want to have a look at how XRP is performing, and I want to discuss how the altcoin market has been holding up, as we still haven't seen an alt season come at the end of this market cycle. And we have just started to see in the recent days, since seeing Bitcoin actually sell off and drop about 29% from its highs, we have started to see the Bitcoin dominance fall down, meaning that the altcoin market is holding up against Bitcoin better. And we're seeing this in a lot of coins like XRP, which have held up quite strong at very strong support levels that we've seen price respond to well in the past. But I want to start with Bitcoin today, and I want to discuss the bullish scenario. Now, in the short term, I am actually getting to a stage where I am quite bullish on Bitcoin, but on a higher time frame perspective here, I do think the top was actually in on the 6th of October. And I did discuss this in a previous video, that if price was to continue to perform like it has in the past, that just based on time, we would see Bitcoin actually top on the 6th of October. And we did discuss this in the video titled, "Is it time to sell XRP?" where, as we can see, Bitcoin was sitting at about $120,000 at the time. However, to start this video, I just want to specifically have a look at things that are bullish for crypto that I'm seeing here. Now, the first thing is obviously the fear and greed. Seeing it get down to 16, which is as low as we've seen it get down to back when Bitcoin was at $79,000 on the 8th of April, and on the 13th of March when Bitcoin was sitting at about $83,000, which was all the way back over here during the tariff scare, which ended up marking a local low. And now that we are seeing Bitcoin, at least on the fear and greed, get back to those same levels, that is somewhat bullish for the market. And I think another thing that's quite bullish here for Bitcoin is quite simply the market structure. And when I say Bitcoin, I do mean the whole market as a whole. But if we grab the 2021 cycle here and overlay it over how price is playing out today, what we'll see is a similarity in the way that Bitcoin's top came in back during 2021 and the way that the tops are playing out today. Now, there are some differences here in the market structure, but overall, I think we have been falling down at a very similar level, and right now we are approaching a level where we should start to see some support on Bitcoin come in. As we can see during the past here in 2021, Bitcoin did come down and find support around this level here, and we are starting to near that price level again. So I think this is another thing that points to Bitcoin bouncing in the short term. Now, what's interesting from 2021 is that when Bitcoin's top ended up coming in, we did see Bitcoin go into a bit of a retracement here, coming to about the 702 before then rolling over and crashing. And during this time period, it was quite bullish for the altcoins, and we did see a lot of euphoria in the market, something that we're not seeing right now. What we're seeing right now is actually when Bitcoin came in for its second top, which again does line up with the market structure. But you can see that even at these levels, if we are in a stage like this right now that I have here highlighted, where I think that Bitcoin has broken down and we are most likely going to find support in a zone like this when Bitcoin does eventually bottom, what ended up coming after this was a price push to the upside of about 41% for Bitcoin, which is quite significant and does make me think that this could be an optimal buying opportunity for Bitcoin. Another thing to note is that when Bitcoin did eventually bounce here at the end of 2021 leading into 2022, we only made it back to about the 382 Fibonacci retracement level. And if we have a look at where that is on today's price chart, we will see that if Bitcoin is to bottom roughly in these regions here, maybe it goes just a little bit lower below this level here, the 382 does take us to about $102,000, so we could see Bitcoin bounce about 20% off the lows once they do end up being confirmed. And one final bullish thing that I do see for the market here is the fact that we haven't seen the Bitcoin dominance break to the downside like we've seen in the past. If we have a look at previous cycles, there is a break in the Bitcoin dominance and then a final break where we see that alt season, and we just haven't seen that so far this cycle. And if we have a look at a lot of these altcoins and we do compare them to the way that they reacted in 2021, considering that Bitcoin has doubled in market cap, we haven't even seen a lot of these altcoins get back to the highs that they set back in 2021, which gives me some hope that there is a potential chance to see a bit of a relief rally or a bounce here for the altcoin market as well. And that if we could see the Bitcoin dominance breakdown, even if it's only a small move like we've seen during the middle of the year, it would at least give a little bit of a relief bounce to the market. And considering how fearful we are in the market right now, I think it's quite likely that we do see that relief bounce. Now, unfortunately, that's all the bullish narratives and arguments that I can see for crypto and Bitcoin right now. Now we'll move over to the bearish stuff, which is the side of the fence that I'm much more leaning towards, considering the market structure lining up to 2021, the market cycle timing, which I think is very important, like we discussed in that XRP video about a month ago before things ended up breaking to the downside, and the fact that this time round, maybe we just won't see an alt season. Maybe we won't see any capital rotation into altcoins. There'll be only a few select coins that'll end up running or maybe have already run, which I don't think is crazy to assume, as we have seen some privacy coins, especially in the last 2 months, rally almost 2,000%. But I think this time round, we are going to likely see a very different style of market structure where we don't see a Bitcoin dominance breakdown and an alt season like we've seen in the past. And a lot of that lines into the way that Bitcoin's price has been reacting. Now, we did pull a fractal from 2021 and discuss how Bitcoin is most likely in a period like this where we should see a relief bounce soon, but it's most likely that the top has come in for Bitcoin like it did back in November of 2021. And what has me thinking that is the way that the altcoins are playing out right now. And when we'd seen this previous top come in April of 2021, there were many things that were playing out a lot differently in the market. The first thing is that this was a very euphoric time and Bitcoin was putting in its top. As Bitcoin was putting in its top, we've seen assets like XRP have explosive moves to the upside and massively outperform Bitcoin in this time period. And if we have a look at how XRP is playing out today, it isn't doing this. What we actually see is XRP reacting like this time period on the right side here, where it is underperforming against Bitcoin and kind of just tracking along. And even if we have a look at Ethereum, you can see during this time period on the left, Ethereum here in the blue was massively outperforming Bitcoin. And during this moment of euphoria, we were seeing that rotation into altcoins and the alt season of 2021. But during this second top here for Bitcoin, what we've seen was Ethereum kind of just tag along and match Bitcoin's price. And if we have a look at how price is playing out today, that's pretty much what we've been seeing. Bitcoin and Ethereum have just been going side by side, but we haven't seen any outperformance from any of the altcoins really for the last couple months in the crypto market. And that the more I look at this chart and the similarities between the altcoins and Bitcoin during this stage of the market cycle, it does point to the fact that we are really just here for Bitcoin. And that during this time period, there was no alt season, there was no explosion of altcoins, and things simply just wrapped up. Now, another thing that's quite interesting here is the cycle timing. And this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a while on the channel here, but I think it's been proven in the last few months that this cycle timing is something to take seriously, and price really does react like this. And the cycle theory is that in 2016, it was an election year and we've seen the start of the bull market. Now, if we have a look at the way price reacted back in 2016, we can see this is the year of 2016 here, and Bitcoin, during a presidential election year in the US, Bitcoin rallied back to its highs. And in the following year, after an election year, we've seen the bull market and Bitcoin go on to set a new all-time high. Then, in the years in between the election, which would be 2018, we've seen the bear market. Then, when's the next election year? 2020. And we can see that during 2020, it was us building up to take out Bitcoin's previous all-time high set back during 2017. And then the year after the election year, 2021, we see the market top come in, which if we were to keep following this same time-based model, the bottom would come in the year, which is 2022. And what did we see in 2022? We've seen the bottom come in for Bitcoin, which means that in the next election year, 2024, we should see Bitcoin get back to its all-time high. And that's exactly what Bitcoin did right here in March of 2024. We've seen Bitcoin get back to its all-time high. And in 2025, just like we've seen twice before in the past, the year after the election year, we should see Bitcoin go on and set a new all-time high and top out. And that's exactly what we've done this time round, which means that in 2026, we are going to see the bottom of the bear market. And typically, if you have a look at how long it takes for markets to top to the bear market, it's about 360 to 375 days. And we can see this again here in 2017. It was about 360 days from top to bottom, which means that it's about a year from the market top to the market bottom. So if we did top in October, we should start to see the bottom of the bear market in October, November, December, Q4 of 2026, which would mean, again, based on the time theory, the top is in for Bitcoin here again. So we have the altcoin market reacting similar to the top of 2021. We have time-based theories pointing to the fact that we are going in to a bear market and the top should already be in. And now we have indicators which are also pointing to the exact same thing. Now, the first indicator I want to have a look at here is the 50-week moving average. And as you can see, during the past, in previous bull markets, we can see here in 2017, Bitcoin stayed above the 50-week EMA, which is this blue line, the entire time. During the 2021 cycle, we stayed above this blue line the entire time, finding support on it and then bouncing to set the new high. And it wasn't until we broke below it that the market was basically over. And that is exactly here in this time period that I have been discussing so far this video. And if we have a look at how Bitcoin's been playing out this cycle, you can see once we got above it, we found support on it, we found support on it again, we found support on it again, and now we have broken down through it, officially closing a weekly candle below it, just like we did back during this exact same time period we've been referencing in 2021 leading into 2022 at the end of the last bull market. We also have more indicators that show under the hood that we are seeing very similar market structures. And the first one here is the MACD. And as you can see, during 2021, when the market topped was the peak of the MACD, and that when Bitcoin came down and ended up putting in this second high here, although it set a new high during this time period, we did see weakness and the indicators actually set a new low when Bitcoin came in for this high. And we've seen the same thing again on this cycle. When Bitcoin topped here, we've seen the height of the MACD and we've seen Bitcoin top at the same time. Then price has moved higher, set a new high here for Bitcoin, the same way we set a new high here back in 2021. And what are we seeing on the underlying indicators here? Weakness and a new low. This is just another thing pointing to the fact that we're seeing continued weakness here on Bitcoin, and that even though Bitcoin did set a new all-time high, we're seeing bearish indicators. Now, one more indicator I want to have a look at here is just the RSI, and it's simply showing the same thing. If we have a look at 2021, we can see that from this peak here to this peak here, Bitcoin sets a new high. However, on the RSI, what do we see? We actually see a new low set on the RSI, and that we're seeing weakness here on the indicators. Now, if we have a look at the way price is playing out today, we do see Bitcoin sets a new high. However, the RSI from really March of 2024 has been bearish, and we have been seeing relative strength declining on Bitcoin the same way it did in 2021, pointing to the fact that we are most likely at the end of the bull market and the top has come in. And just one final thing that I want to show you guys, again, if we look at this period of 2021 and we have a look at something like Zcash, you can see that during this period here when Bitcoin topped for the second time, even though we've seen weakness on Ethereum and the rest of the altcoin market, which just tracked alongside Bitcoin here, showing that the market cycle was over, we did see things like Zcash pop to the upside. And as you've probably seen previously, right here at the end of this market cycle, what have we seen? The exact same thing. When Bitcoin's topped, grinding to the downside, we've seen things like Zcash pop off and go to the upside again. And there's a lot of theories about why this is happening, but essentially Zcash, Monero, these are all privacy coins. And when you make a transaction on a privacy coin, let's say you sell your Bitcoin for a privacy coin, there is no record of that transaction because it keeps that data private. So when a lot of wealthy people with a lot of Bitcoin want to exit their positions and they don't want people to see where that money's going, they don't want to see any record of that transaction, they transact into privacy coins, which is why we've seen such a price increase in the privacy sector, which is something you typically see at the end of the market cycle. And we didn't really start to see this pop up until Bitcoin basically topped. Meanwhile, at the same time, seeing none of the other altcoins show any indicator that they wanted to go on and set new highs during this time. And one final indicator, if we have a look at the Dow Jones here, this is something we have discussed previously on the channel, and we open things up on a bigger time frame here. What we can see is that in the past on the Dow Jones, we have seen 3 previous rate cuts, and during all 3 of those rate cuts, what did we see? The first one, we seen COVID, which right here in blue, we can see the rate cut. We've discussed this on the channel, but I just want to emphasize this again because this is something that was really important to me when I was going to decide on when to sell my crypto. And the last time we seen a rate cut, it was COVID. The time before that rate cut was the GFC, and the rate cut before that was the dot-com bubble, where we've seen about a 37% correction, 50% correction in the Dow Jones, 38% correction during COVID. And now what have we started to see? We've seen the initial rate cut come in here, where we've seen the market surged to the upside with a small tariff scare crash. And now since August, we have seen the rates start to get cut again. And so far, we haven't seen anything crazy happen in the stock market, but it sure does look like we are seeing a pretty significant sell-off here in the Dow Jones. And it's most likely that during this rate cut time, we are going to see another narrative come with it. And this one might just be called the tech bubble pop that causes the Dow to crash 50%. But like we've discussed previously in the past, it's usually about 2 months since the second rate cut that we do see the crash. And the meeting where they cut the rates for the second time was in September, I believe. And that does line us up with the crash starting in roughly November. Now, on top of that, we've seen a meteoric rise in gold, doubling in price just this year alone, and other metals like silver also almost doubling in price just this year alone, as a lot of people are moving their money from risk-on assets like the stock market, like crypto, to safer places where assets are considered less volatile, like metals, for example. So how am I trading this market now? From the perspective that I think the top is most likely in. Now, in previous cycles, we have seen Bitcoin bounce back to about the 702 before rolling over. So the way I'm going to be trading the market is, in the short term, I'm most likely to start accumulating a little bit of Bitcoin and maybe some altcoins. And I do think we will see a relief bounce here from about 85 to 88,000. So I do think we will see Bitcoin and the altcoin market rally over the next coming months to most likely the 702 Fibonacci retracement level, which currently sits at about $115,000 for Bitcoin. However, when Bitcoin does get above $103,000, this is when I'll most likely be starting to shave down my positions, and I will be fully out of any positions if we do see Bitcoin get to the 702. And if we do see a relief bounce on altcoins like XRP, for example, these are levels I'll be targeting at about $2.87, which lines up with about the 618 Fibonacci retracement level, and maybe we could see XRP get higher, maybe even $3.04 if we do see a full push from Bitcoin here to the 702 Fibonacci retracement level. And then I will simply be fully out of the market and not participating until we can see further confirmation that the market wants to go higher. So basically this zone here is a no-go zone for me, and if price gets into these levels, I will not be interested and I'll be fully out. But until Bitcoin, or XRP for that matter, can get higher than those previous highs back in these high $3 levels, then I will be more interested in getting back into the market. But the way I'm looking at this, with everything that I've just shared, bullish and bearish, I'm simply not participating in the market any higher than the 702 Fibonacci retracement level for Bitcoin until it can prove that it wants to go and set new highs. And the same here goes for XRP. So right now, all I'm really looking for is a relief bounce to exit my positions until the market can prove to me that it wants to go higher. And we are going to see something different this cycle. And the only thing that gives me hope that we may see that is two things, actually. The first is the Bitcoin dominance and the fact that we haven't really seen a true alt season this cycle. Although it's quite likely that we just won't get it. And even though we have had it twice before in the past, this time around we simply might not get it. And maybe there's too many altcoins in the market, maybe there's too many meme coins, maybe it's too diluted, and we won't see an alt season, which is quite a possibility. And considering the timing and how deep we are into the year and the fact that we haven't really seen anything yet, I do think is quite likely to play out. But the other thing that has me quite bullish here is actually XRP against Bitcoin. And the last time I actually discussed it was back in June, before we did see XRP outperform in the short term. And I think we've seen it shoot up to about $3.80, which it did set its most recent high at. And that was this structure that was playing out down here. And essentially what we had was XRP selling off against Bitcoin for quite a while, and then we went into this accumulation structure down here where we ended up accumulating, manipulating the lows, and then eventually breaking to the upside, and that led to XRP's outperformance. And we have seen this once before, and that was right down here at the lows when the same thing played out. XRP sold off against Bitcoin for quite a while. It accumulated down here at the lows. Once it was done selling off, it manipulated to the downside, and then it shot up. And this was actually back in November when we did see that crazy rally on XRP. Now, if we have a look at how XRP is playing out today, we are starting to see something quite similar. The sell-off has clearly come to an end. We have gone into a bit of an accumulation range, and right now the only thing we really haven't seen is the manipulation to the downside. Only just the wick here on the 4 hour to the downside that does slightly manipulate the accumulation range here. However, we are starting to see XRP sit back above this accumulation range, and we have seen this 2 times in the past, and in both examples, XRP's price did outperform Bitcoin in the short term. As we can see here, once we did get above this accumulation range, we sat up here for a very short period of time and then exploded to the upside. And just like back in November, once we did get above the accumulation range, we sat here for a very short period of time and then exploded to the upside. So I am seeing very similar market dynamics actually play out here for the XRP Bitcoin chart, which gives me some hope that we may see some outperformance from XRP come in the short term. However, until I see XRP get to these $3.40, $3.30, even take out its high, I'm not really interested in it in this range, and I will be looking to take profits on any move that we do see to the upside. And just another little bit of hopium for XRP holders here is typically after a very big liquidation flush like this, there is an accumulation range which does grind to the downside like this, followed by some crazy hype news event, which ends up being the exit liquidity, where all the big whales end up dumping on retail. And this is where we can see XRP's price on the back of some positive news just rocket to the upside and then completely reject. And last time XRP did have a big liquidation cascade like this, we did see something quite similar to this, where we've seen the big liquidation cascade. XRP just chops and accumulates for a bit, and then we've seen one tweet come out and it just shot price back to the upside, back into the resistance level of this range, and that did provide a great opportunity for a lot of people to actually exit XRP. And I think considering the XRP Bitcoin chart, it's likely we could see something like that, which could see XRP's price shoot as high as $2.70, maybe even $3 in the short term. However, all in all, I'm pretty bearish on the market, and I do think that the October 6th high was the top for Bitcoin, but in the short term, I do expect some kind of relief bounce, and I am actually starting to accumulate a little bit of Bitcoin here, as I do expect price to move to at least $104,000 before rejecting and going lower. Now, I know there's been a lot of negativity and bear market discussions, and it's over for Bitcoin, so I just want to leave you guys with a little bit of positivity, and that is that if the October 6th top ends up being the height and we do sell off into a bear market, typically we see Bitcoin sell off about 75 to 80% during a bear market. Now, considering we have a much bigger market and there's institutions involved, we could see maybe a 60% sell-off, which would take Bitcoin down to about $46,000 roughly. But more accurately, we have seen Bitcoin sell off for about a year. So coming around this time next year, Q4 especially, we are most likely going to see the bottom of Bitcoin before the start of the next bull market. And I do believe there is going to be another bull market for crypto, because I don't see digital assets going anywhere. All I see is them getting added to the current financial system, and I think they're going to continue to be a bigger and bigger thing in the future as everything's moving digital IDs, digital currencies. So I do think there is going to be another bull market run for crypto in about 11 to 13 months from now. Anyone that knows what's going on is going to have a generational buying opportunity to accumulate Bitcoin at extremely low prices, as it's most likely we will see Bitcoin higher than $250,000 in the next cycle. And if Bitcoin's price does fall as low as $40,000 to $30,000, that is going to provide a crazy opportunity for anyone that's still paying attention to this market to be able to accumulate and set themselves up for the next cycle leading into 2028 and 2029. And I will be here on the channel to help guide you guys next year when that time does come around, because there is actually quite a large window to accumulate. Like you can see down here, when the bottom came in for Bitcoin, there was very negative news attached to it, the FTX collapse. However, price did stay down here at these levels for like 61 days. Even back here in 2017 when the bottom came in, very similar market structure, and price stayed down here for 160 days. So it's not like there's this rare opportunity where price ends up bottoming out and then that's it, it's all up from there. You get a lot of time and a lot of opportunity to be able to mark out and find these levels, especially in the future. I think things will continue to play out the same, and that those that are paying attention in 2027 and are able to accumulate the bottom will be sitting quite comfortable, as a lot of the people that are selling right now are sitting, as we have moved up quite a long way from those levels. So guys, I'll be back with another video when we do start to see Bitcoin bounce, and it would most likely be a warning video from when we see Bitcoin get between $104,000 to $115,000. So until then, I hope you've all been well. Thanks for watching the video. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next one.